So, another video. This one I'm going to talk about what I experienced at the cemetery this year. I make my annual trek back to Connecticut to take care of the family plot, like my father did and my grandfather did, and so on and so forth. Putting wreaths on the stones in December. So, I went back in December and had the wreaths go up to the stone. In years previous, I've had the light come down to me. Was it 2 years ago? My While I'm putting the wreath on the stone, tying the string around the headstone itself, the family stone, the light came down to me, and of course I burst into tears like I always do. And then it happened three more times in the cemetery as I went through the various relative stones. So someone was with me. So I don't know what to expect when I go down any longer. I think that's the same trip where my aunt actually spoke to me in my head when I get back to the car. How come they never come visit? So my cousins um, had a pretty rough childhood in their household. Uh, I'm going to get into that in another video that's in process. There's something very big going on behind the scenes that I'm not talking about yet, but I think I'm going to finally, because this needs to come to a resolution. It's been going on too long. Anyway, this visit to the cemetery, did my usual activities, cleaned up the stones, put the wreaths on, and our family plot is on a hill surrounded by a road, goes around it. It's a big hill. Across the way is kind of a slope up into the woods on the other end of the street, across the road on the other end of the cemetery. And for decades, I knew there was a family at our church. They had a son who was disabled. I think I don't know exactly what it was. I think lack of oxygen at birth, but he had um, challenges. He was nonverbal, if I recall, and I don't know the exact diagnosis, but he was pretty bad off. And I think he actually died when he was 11 or 12. Anyway, the family buried him in the cemetery across the street from our plot. So I'm up on the hill looking across, and I would see their stone there for decades, a big red granite stone with a big heart shape on one side, and Richie. I'm not going to say the family's last name, obviously, but died in the mid 80s, I think it was. I think it's before I went to college. Anyway, so he was buried there. So for decades, you look across and then see that stone. Well, this year I'm cleaning up and I'm hanging the wreath on the stone, and I'm looking across and I don't see that stone any longer. Like, oh, what happened to Richie's stone? It's very prominent. It's not like it's hidden behind other stones or anything. So I'm like, that's interesting. Okay, where'd he go? So after I finish up where I am and I check the other plots, I went across the street, across the road there, to the other side, and I start searching. And I go up and down that whole stretch for about a half hour, and there is absolutely no stone there. None. I seem to have recalled, because they had stopped going to church, I think in the late 80s. I thought I recalled them moving to North Carolina. Um, but I figured, okay, maybe they just moved the plot, had him reinterred down wherever they were living now. So didn't think much more about it. Meanwhile, I walk around the cemetery to the other family plots, and there's a stone from the North family, which we are descended from. They fought in the Revolutionary War and they fought in the Civil War. And one of the Civil War soldiers' graves is there next to the parents' stone. And I see something very odd on top of the stone. It's kind of one of these like book-shaped stones, like scrolls or Bible. I don't know what it's supposed to represent, but there's two sides, him and her, and we're descended from her side. And on top of the stone is this white, solid object. I'm like, okay, what's that? So I walk over to it. I'll put the picture in the video here. Walk over to it, and it is a skull-shaped candle holder on top of her side of the stone. So I'd never seen this, and it looked like it had been rained on. It was a little bit dissolved a little bit, so there wasn't any big detail. It was just kind of slowly dissolving away. So it was very plain. You could get the basic shape, but there was no detail on it any longer. So I didn't know what that was. First thought in my head was someone's doing some sort of dark ritual here at the stone. So I freak out and I grab a stick and I go to knock this thing off the stone to get it away, say all the blessings, call in the light, start praying. Don't let any dark activity happen here. Please bless this stone, bless this space, bless this plot, bless this cemetery. If I had sage, I would have burned it, but I just assumed. And so I go to knock it off, and it's actually kind of fused to the stone a little bit. So I think as it dissolved, it kind of solidified and stuck to the stone. So I knock it off, kick it up into the woods, and say all the prayers. And I said, let me look this up, though. So I started Googling as I'm walking back towards the stone. And like I said, I have never seen anything like this before. Never mind at this cemetery, nor I have ever heard of anything like this. So I started Googling it and I said, okay, white skull candle on a headstone. And what comes back? It says certain beliefs believe that this is a way of honoring the ancestors. So you're honoring an ancestor. It's nothing dark. It's nothing satanic. Nothing ritualistic was attached to it, according to what the results I found. And I looked at a few different websites that commented on this, and so they had pictures of it, and it looked identical to the pictures, and it says just basically a way of honoring the ancestors. So if there is another ancestor in the town, I don't know of them. I mean, this was generations ago. There could be thousands of relatives at this point. I don't know of anyone living in town. Not that I heard of growing up, nothing. So this just appeared this year. So, I said, okay, it's nothing satanic. It's nothing dark. Okay. So I kicked it back out of the woods and I still took a stick and I put it back up on the stone. I said, okay, leaving that be, bless the stone, try to bring in the light, try to bring in, push away any negativity. But that just kind of freaked me out. I had never seen anything like that. So if anyone wants to leave a comment, if you've seen something like this, let me know, because I don't know who, where, or why this appeared this year at the cemetery. So when I'm back sometime this year, I'll swing by and see if it's still there, or if something else has happened. But that just kind of threw me for a loop. So if you have an experience like this, or you've done something like this, let me know in the comments. But that was just kind of weird. Anyway, once I got home, going back to Richie's disappeared stone, I got the church directory out. I still have all the church directories from the 80s, and they're in there before he passed, and got the address. And so I Googled the parents to see if they were in North Carolina or something, and no, it says they still live in the town. So either they moved down and moved back, or they never left, or something happened, but they're still in the town. And when I pulled it up to Google, a couple friends' names came up associated with that name. So I pinged them and said, do you know anything about this situation going on? And so she said they were only affiliated with that family. Their son married their daughter, briefly for a couple of years, haven't spoke since the mid 2000s. So otherwise didn't know anything about it. And I don't know. So now it's an open mystery. So I may call the cemetery just out of curiosity, but I've not seen anyone move a burial plot like that before. So, I mean, could be a perfectly reasonable explanation for it. I'm sure there is, but it was just a little bit freaky on top of the other thing that happened during this year's visit to the cemetery. So, again, if you've had anything like this, let me know. So I'm not the only one, but that was an interesting development. Nothing directly paranormal, but just a little bit freaky. So, thanks.